Welcome to the Women in Blockchain Talks podcast, an educational platform where we focus on bringing you fresh and unique perspectives on the crypto and DLT space. I'm your host, Lavinia Osborne, and I'll be speaking to different experts and professionals who will be on hand to pass on their knowledge. If you enjoyed the show, please consider joining our exciting and diverse blockchain community, which is open to all genders. Thank you for listening. Now on to the show. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Women in Blockchain Talks with me, Lavinia Osborne. Today, I am with the awesome Anthony Day, blockchain partner at IBM. That sounds very, very official. So Anthony is going to explain exactly what that is. And also, because he's so much into the blockchain scene, he's also the host of the podcast, Blockchain Won't Save the World. So I'm really intrigued to find out more about his podcast and why he hasn't asked me on it yet. And so with that, Anthony, please tell me a little bit more about you and how you became an IBM blockchain partner. And what exactly does that mean?
Lavinia, thank you so much for the warm welcome. Hello, everybody. My name's Anthony Day. As Lavinia mentioned, I'm a partner in blockchain at IBM. What that means is it's my role, it's my responsibility to help companies, governments to think about how to use blockchain technology, to understand what are the benefits objectively, how it can be used, and then to take those strategies and those ideas into implementation of technology. So I'm very privileged that I get to see everything through from initial ideation, companies and governments figuring out what blockchain is all about, right through into building production platforms, networks, and seeing the technology come to life.
That sounds like fun and very creative. Is it creative?
It is. You have to be creative. And that's one of the reasons why I enjoy working in blockchain so much. I've had a career since the very start working in strategy consulting, which latterly became digital strategy consulting because you can't really have strategy without technology these days. And ultimately, that's just about helping organizations make difficult choices around technology, whether that's about growth, helping their company to grow, whether that's about helping to improve the lives of citizens. All of that comes together with technology. And why blockchain is particularly interesting is because it's a multi-party technology. So you can imagine what is the art of the possible by having an entire supply chain working together, or a number of competitors in an industry working together, or public-private partnerships between government and the private sector. And with that, you can do a whole bunch more. And that's why I find it so interesting.
You brought up some interesting words there and phrases. I like them. What was that? It was multi-party. What was that term that you used, if you can repeat that?
So this is how to say blockchain without saying the word blockchain in 2021, right? Because no matter who you are, where you are, at some point, somebody's heard the word blockchain, and you'll either get a positive reaction, you'll see people's eyes light up, or you'll get some sort of, oh my God, is that about Bitcoin and crypto? Or we've had 1,000 people come and try and talk to us about blockchain and we're bored of it by now, please go away. All we're saying here is this is a form of digital transformation that allows you to work with multiple different companies, multiple different organizations, where if you combine your data and your processes, you can improve things, you can do things better. And the dirty secret here is that if you start out exploring things that way, you might not end up with blockchain as the technology you end up using, but you're still going to be creating something of value to the world. And that's what's important.
So how did you end up here at IBM? Because, there will be people listening to this and thinking, oh, I've got a background in consultancy. I have a background in digital consultancy and business acumen and applications. And what he does sounds interesting. How do I get a bit of that?
So I've been very fortunate in my blockchain career so far. I started out working in Deloitte in Ireland, who had their global center of excellence around blockchain and blockchain delivery based here in Dublin. And I was working in a different team in digital strategy, and the opportunity came up to work with them. Started working on a couple of projects in the financial services sector. And eventually they said, look, we're growing. It's going crazy fast. We need somebody else to come in and help support the team and to help us grow. And that was an opportunity I couldn't turn down. 3 years later, we've done some amazing projects. We worked in a bunch of different sectors. Being in a center of excellence, you get to work in more than just one geography. So you get to see the world with the job, which is always good. But at that point, it was at a bit of an inflection saying, what's next? I've definitely been hooked by blockchain as an area that I really want to work. How do I really push myself? And looking at the time, there was only really one organization in the world that was really delivering blockchain projects at scale. Some of the biggest networks in the world, if you look at TradeLens, WeTrade, Food Trust, some of the biggest companies working in production with blockchain. And I said, well, if I really want to see this career through, if I really want to push myself, I want to work with the best in the business. I want to see what's possible. I want to go and learn from those people. It was as much about learning and improving as it was about IBM specifically as an organization. A year and a half ago, about 18 months ago, I made the choice to move. And what I was looking for, what I expected to see at the other end was kind of that and more. My boss at the time described IBM as a sort of a bottomless toy box of opportunities, of things, of capabilities, of research, of all of the smart and talented people you can ever possibly work with. You've just got to figure out what to do with it. And it's been an amazing journey so far, albeit about 2/3 of that I've spent in my bedroom because of the pandemic. It has been an amazing ride.
Mm-hmm. So you just started with IBM, is that what you're saying then?
Relatively speaking, I mean, 18 months goes pretty quickly. It's not been my entire career, but in those 18 months, we've covered a lot of ground. We've done a huge amount in terms of supply chain, in terms of sustainability. You look at the digital health passport work that's going on worldwide in a number of different geographies. Really, really challenging, but very important work in terms of helping us get back to a degree of normality. There's been a lot of ground covered, and it is proof that you can do blockchain from your bedroom.
Well, there you go. I like that. That could even be a podcast, blockchain from your bedroom.
I know exactly who my first two guests are going to be for that one. Anne Griffin and Arena, I'm calling you out. Blockchain from the bedroom, first episode featuring you guys.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. So talking of podcasts, tell me about your podcast, because it sounds quite fun and lively. I'm not saying IBM isn't fun and lively, because it does sound like a really fun job that you do there, but it's not corporate, is it? A podcast. Blockchain won't save the world.
Yeah, and it's a deliberately ironical title. And from anyone who's worked in blockchain, that same bias that comes with every time you mention what you do for a living, it's tough, right? There's been an awful lot of hype around the sector. With any emerging technology, there always is. And what I wanted to do is to try and contribute back some of the examples, some of the stories, some of the companies and startups that are doing really amazing work that most of the rest of the world doesn't get to hear about.
Right.
Blockchain doesn't get a lot of column inches. It doesn't necessarily get the broadest of coverage in terms of the work that's going on. So the first season was really about taking some of the hype out and just presenting some objective, real stories, whether that was supply chain, digital identity, all of the common use cases of the day we went through. Second season has really been about me scratching the travel itch. I've been missing getting out in the world and going to hackathons and going to meetups and conferences and events. And so what I've been doing is we've been through country specific episodes, talking through academia, government, startups, influencers, enterprise in really exciting countries that are doing a ton of work. But again, that doesn't necessarily get the visibility I think it deserves. So some of the first episodes have been Brazil, Israel, India, Malta, Germany. And in every episode, I never know what's going to be the story or the key themes when I start. I'm going to talk to 10 to 15 people per episode, which is complete self-sabotage as a podcaster. It takes hours to edit them afterwards. But the conversations are so interesting and so rich, and you get to learn a lot while you're doing these shows. And hopefully the community values that, because I think the more we learn about what's happening in other countries and other markets and from different perspectives, the better we become as digital strategists or blockchainers. So that's what I'm about.
Oh, I think that's amazing. I love that. Because as you know, Women in Blockchain Talks, it's female focused, female led, but it's a community that's open to all, because we're about inclusivity, diversity, and inclusivity. And one of the things that I want to do is I want to create like a 80, like the title 80 days around the world, so 80 podcasts around the world, but focusing on a female leader from a different part of the world, and having going around the world and how, because representation matters. And there could be someone listening to that and they hear someone who's in Jamaica who's a female leader in blockchain, and it's like, wow, I never even knew there was a scene in Jamaica, or that women were prevalent in that space. So when you talk about that, it just resonates with me in regards to that project, but I'm not actually sure how I'm going to execute it, but it's
Get it done. Make yourself the challenge and you will achieve it. And I'm happy to introduce you to as many of the amazing blockchain female leaders out there in other countries. I've had the privilege to travel to about 120 countries over my lifetime, and travel is a huge passion of mine. So anybody that I can link you up with, there've already been some amazing ladies on some of the episodes we've had on season 2 already. Get it done. I want to listen to that show.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much. He's given me a challenge, and I cannot not accept it. Okay, so talking of amazing women, you introduced me, of course, to Ryan Rugg, who's an IBMer out in the United States. So thank you for that. And the reason why she was brought up in the conversation is because we were talking about recruitment, and there's a big IBM recruitment drive at the moment. So, a question for you is, with this big recruitment drive for the blockchain projects going on at IBM, what are the sort of roles and what advice would you give to women wanting to apply for it?
That's a really good question. And I'm going to break this one up into a few different components, if that's okay, because I think first things first is, how do you understand why it is you want to go and work in blockchain? And this is a question that you have to ask yourself as before you're applying to any individual company. Think about what it is that you're looking for from that particular career. I mean, I gave you my story of why I find blockchain is a particularly interesting domain, but it may differ for other people. Some people may have a particular passion around some of the subsets of the themes where blockchain is commonly used. It could be sustainability. It could be self-sovereign identity. It could be the construction industry or transformation of regional government. It could be a whole bunch of different things. But understand what it is that you're passionate about, and then understand whether working in blockchain fits and allows you to scratch that itch, or that the learning of working in that particular space fits. Because in the same way as we challenge ourselves as, is blockchain the right technology for use for this problem? The same applies to your career. Is blockchain the right career to scratch the itch or the desire that you have in terms of what you want next? So I think understand first and foremost why. Because emerging technologies come and go, right? The hype cycles accelerate very quickly. It becomes really interesting and really exciting and very dynamic. And then things tail off. It gets more challenging, and then other things pop up at the time. So is it specifically this, or is it that you want to work in emerging technology or in a fast-paced space? And is blockchain a fit for you? I'd say that's kind of thing one. Thing two is, what type of roles am I able to or looking to fulfill? Another really important thing about, or really interesting thing about blockchain is you've got a very, very diverse set of roles required to develop these sorts of platforms. You've got architects, you've got business analysts, you've got developers of all sorts of flavors, right? You've got front end and back end developers. You can be a user interface developer and still work on blockchain projects. And I believe we need them, because frankly, an awful lot of blockchain projects out there have horrible UI and UX. So we do need the help. Even the legal community, right? There's a huge amount of involvement of legal assurance and standards work around blockchain. It might be that you don't have a particular bent for user journeys, UX or UI, but you're really strong in helping to develop and define standards. And that could be your role into these sorts of particular spaces. The next thing then is going to be the fit of, whether there are roles available in an organization like IBM or any other. Right? I mean, the great thing is, you go and Google blockchain jobs, or you go onto LinkedIn right now and you type blockchain into the jobs bar, you're going to find hundreds of jobs in blockchain right now, whether that be IBM or anywhere else, of different levels of experience, different skill set, different background, different geography. The great thing is, I don't think the blockchain jobs market has ever been busier and more full right now. We are recruiting very heavily, and go and have a look through some of those profiles, have a look through what people are looking for, and then understand, how does that fit with what you've done, what you're doing next? And if it doesn't, how do I pad out, or how do I build out some experience that helps me do that?
I think that's great answers there. One of the things that came to mind when you were speaking was that a lot of people don't know what they don't know. Some people fall into blockchain and then they discover all of this box of opportunities, referring to what you were saying before, a term that you used. And it's like, wow, I find this space so innovative, so refreshing, so exciting. And yes, it's just fast paced and all the rest of it. It could be for that reason. But even so, people don't know what they don't know. So they may come into the space and they don't have a why. They're just exploring to see if it is for them. So what would you say in regards to that?
So if you're in that space and you're there to learn, I mean, that's a great place to go. One of the things I often give as advice to people starting out in their career is wherever you go, make sure you're learning. I think that's at any stage of your career, but what is it you're going to learn next from working in this space that might help you in whatever your next step is? Are you creating very specific niche skills that are non-transferable, or are you developing knowledge and experience, whether that be about technology, an industry domain, working in a particular geography, that you can reuse for what's next? Right? If you work in digital strategy, you can typically apply that knowledge into any area that you see fit. You're going to have to do some reading to get in there. If you're learning a particular coding language or a particular architecture pattern, that may be less transferable. But I mean, the good news is that a decentralized global IT architecture is about as expansive as it gets, and you can come back from there. Right? If you're working with hybrid or multi-cloud, if you're working with Kubernetes, microservice architecture, if you have an appreciation of machine and human identity, that's about as complex as it gets in most of the architectures you'll see anywhere else. So you can work back from that if you find that you don't like it.
Yeah, that's great advice. So basically, it's like explore, learn, and you can come back from it, But even if you're coming back from it, you've learned something from it, which is the case with many experience. But we're talking about blockchain here and the complexity of it all.
And also, I think before we move on, don't set yourself up for failure, or rather, definitely set yourself up to fail, but don't set yourself expectations that you're going to struggle to meet in what happens next. So if you come into a particular role expecting that you're going to be on the front lines developing and creating things that are going to immediately go into production within weeks, and it's going to be a rapid agile, when you start getting into consortium building and it takes you 6 months to just get through the legal structuring of the entities that you're going to end up working with before you cut a single line of code, you might get in there and say, well, I was supposed to have built 6 blockchains by now. What's going on? Yeah, so spend a little bit of time also to talk to people who are in the sector, talk to people who've got some experience, whether those be in enterprise consulting, startups, get an appreciation, listen to them talk, go to virtual conferences and meetups, see what they're posting on Twitter. As much information that you can help to give you a bit of healthy perspective. If all you go in is saying, I'll do anything as long as it has the word blockchain in it, you may set yourself up for a misalignment of expectation down the road, and no one wants to see that happen.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Really good advice. Thank you. So you were saying that if you go into Google, you're going to see there's a lot of blockchain jobs, and it's very busy at the present moment, which is very true. One of the things that I come across the board in different, particularly, of course, in women's groups that I'm in, and it's like looking for female developers or looking for female candidates for these roles. We want more diversity. We want more inclusivity. Do you think there's a need for a female-focused job board, so to speak, a blockchain female-focused job board? Do you think there's enough jobs out there to warrant one?
There is absolutely no shortage of blockchain jobs out there for female candidates or any candidates to fill. And it is absolutely critical that we have diversity in this space. I've had the real privilege of working in a number of different teams in blockchain and not. I've had right across the spectrum from 60, 70% female to close to 50-50, or as close to 50-50 as we could have when we were at Deloitte, to the other end of 5-10% female participation in the teams. And frankly, 50-50 or 50-50 plus has always been a better, more productive, more balanced teaming environment. I don't think anybody would challenge that we need diversity in the space. In IT, you've got a little bit of I think it's a cohort challenge in terms of the IT workforce is kind of filled with people who did their training in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and the 10s. Maybe not the 10s, it might be a little bit early for that, but people who have started their careers in different ages, and those cohorts have different degrees of representation. The good news is that the further we go along in more recent times, the more diversity we have in those cohorts. But people who've been training in the 80s and 90s, there's going to be less senior female architects around just because of the nature of how the industry was shaped up at the time. And there's not really much we can do to fight that. In terms of the cohorts, we can absolutely look at retraining. We can look at people, taking lateral moves in their career, and the more we can do that, the better. But it's going to be hard to fight back the numbers. What we've got to try and do is encourage as much female talent and diverse talent through today as we possibly can, so that we're resetting that balance and setting showing examples of great female leaders that are out there. There's no shortage of them. Right. When I came into IBM, one of the first people I spoke to was Marie Week. She was the leader of the IBM Blockchain platform team at the time. You mentioned Ryan Rugg, who's our North America's leader, Swati Bide, who's our leader for Asia Pacific, Crystal Weber, who leads our network design capability. She's a partner, and others. Even looking beyond blockchain, you look at Sherry Hinish, who's our sustainable supply chain leader, Holly Cummins, who's an amazing thought leader on cloud and cloud innovation. These are all inspiring people who are out there, who are speaking regularly, who are setting a brilliant example for others, saying they trained 10, 20 years ago, maybe longer. Not going to give away anyone's age too much, but there are some very experienced, brilliant leaders who have been able to forge a career whose examples we should be following. The more we can follow that, the more we can encourage diversity and participation at every level, the more we're going to reset that balance and those cohorts over time. It's a tough fight right now because of what's gone before, but I've never seen greater commitment. And at an organization like IBM, I've never seen more visible focus and prioritization diversity than anywhere else I've worked, which is truly inspiring.
That is wonderful to hear, really wonderful to hear. So one of the things that we're doing here at Women in Blockchain Talks is we have launched a campaign. It's 50,000 women into blockchain. So meaning to attract, entice, invite 50,000 more women into blockchain for them to have a look at it. Because like I said before, you don't know what you don't know, right? So we've launched a campaign and we use a quiz to power the campaign, and the objective is to introduce individuals to hackathons so they can utilize their skills and see if it's a space they really want to be involved in. And also one of the things that we will be doing is launching a job board. So that's the reason why I was asking the question. So it would be great to have the support of an entity such as IBM, or even a person like yourself supporting the campaign and perhaps even the job board.
I think that's super important. And if you look at the pandemic has put a little bit of pressure on some of the ability to get diverse and female talent into the workforce, into blockchain. In some cases, it's not in every jurisdiction, right? A number of geographies, we've got great remote working capabilities. You've got companies that are really deeply focused on allowing work-life balance, allowing family balance, allowing anybody who's got different requirements or different pressures to still participate in the workforce. But that's not everywhere. And I had some really interesting conversations with two ladies, Gyan Lakshmi and Richard Joshi, both based in India, both working in blockchain. And they gave a fairly, I think, inspiring view that says blockchain is a global, open source, decentralized community. Right? As a result, that actually makes participation easier to some extent, because the way in which those open source repositories, those projects can advance isn't 9 to 5, or it isn't based on, you've got more flexibility how you contribute. They were talking about some of the other initiatives they were participating in, like Women Who Code, and others, where there's any number of great projects that you can start working in part-time or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. This is still not where we'd like it to be. But blockchain, as much as any other sector, has a better chance of encouraging that participation. So fully support the work you're doing.
Thank you so much. And I agree with you as well. And that's what many of the ladies that I speak to in my communities, outside of my community, that's what we're so excited about. And that's why I want anyone and anybody who feel this could be their space to know about this space. But someone's got to introduce it to them first. So that's why we're doing the campaign.
Women in Blockchain Talks podcast with Lavinia Osborne, getting professional and personal in the crypto and DLT space. A quick break to shout out our sponsors, and a massive thank you to our partners April 6th, industry specialists that make moments that matter for brands that shape the future.
One other question I wanted to ask you, because I know you're quite prolific on LinkedIn. And so LinkedIn stated last year that blockchain is the future of work. Do you agree with that statement?
That's a really good, bold statement, isn't it? I think I would probably try and pare that one back to what did they mean at the time? Or what does blockchain is the future of work really mean? If we can take some of the characteristics of how blockchain projects or blockchain initiatives evolve, like I said, open source, decentralized, and global. If you take those as three principles for the future of how technology is developed, absolutely. Right? Those are three really powerful ways of doing work, because it allows for contribution at any level. It's democratic. It's equitable. It's global in nature. It isn't 9 to 5. So what can we learn from blockchain that will help push things forward? Those are three really strong characteristics to help with. Will all of us be working in blockchain technology and on blockchain startups in the next 12 months or 24 months or whenever? I don't think so. I think we've got a very, very broad canvas of different technologies, of different roles, of different industry sectors, not all of which will be fully ingrained in working with blockchain all of the time. There are a bunch of processes and workflows where blockchain doesn't belong or where it doesn't fit. But I would argue that what we can learn from blockchain, the way in which blockchain communities help to advance technology, should be seen as a component of the future of work.
Great answer there, Anthony. Great answer. All right, so my last question to you, and it's quite interesting because this question, I am thinking about. I shouldn't put this out there, but I think this would make a great title for a podcast. What has blockchain got to do with me? And so I decided that I am going to ask this question to all of my guests towards the end. So if someone was to and you've said that you've spoken to people and their eyes either light up or they're like, ugh, here we go again. And I don't know if that's in a professional sense or just within your circles, because obviously not everyone outside of the blockchain world knows about blockchain or has an interest in it. But if you was talking about it and someone turned around and said, well, what's blockchain got to do with me? What answer would you give?
That's a really interesting one. And I think it's also a great title for a podcast, by the way, or a blog, or what's blockchain got to do with it? Was that Gloria Estefan or something? I don't know. Anyway, she obviously didn't have it with blockchain, but what's love got to do? Is that Gloria Estefan? We would look that up. Somebody Google that for us and get back to us on it.
No, it's Tina Turner. What's love got to do with it? Yeah.
Tina. Oh, yeah. Tina, I've done you dirty. I'm sorry.
Have you done it dirty? But Gloria Estefan is amazing as well.
I'm a big fan of both. You can tell I'm fond of 80s and 90s music. So anyway, what has blockchain got to do with me? Why should I care? And I think it's really important to take the blockchain out of it and say, what are the capabilities that blockchain allows us to provide to different problems? And then do those problems matter to me? So if I care about the provenance of products that I wear or that I consume, if I care or want to ensure trust in the information that's provided to me around whether something is fair trade or sustainably sourced, or what the carbon footprint is of that product, chances are I'm going to need those organizations that provide those products to me to have an underlying platform that allows that information to be recorded and verified. I care about that deeply. I care about climate and social impact deeply. And under both of those things, we need data and trust. Sustainability and climate change is a data problem because what gets measured gets managed. If you are seeing organizations reporting appropriately on their activity, and I mean appropriately, not reporting what they choose to report, but having a digital twin of their operations or their supply chain to a point where it is transparent, or it is at least trusted and shared the degree of which they are sustainable, the actions that they're doing is reducing carbon footprint, then we need some technology to sit underneath that. We need regulators or auditors to come in and audit that, because it's not necessarily about self-reporting anymore. Every country and every company in the world is going to need to focus on transparency of sourcing, of use of plastic, and of carbon footprint from now until forever. And if you care about that, and you care about the trust and the data, there's a good chance blockchain may be part of the story of things that you care about. It's not the only technology that's going to solve that problem. And blockchain isn't going to save the world by itself. But that's a part of it. If you are interested in participating in a token economy, or being able to share or trade value across borders in real time, have digital or fully virtual assets be tradable, chances are this is a space for you, whether that's about artwork or whether that's about virtual weapons in computer games. there is a technology that's very, very good for trading, managing the ownership and payment of virtual and digital assets. And so if you care about those things, chances are you'll care about blockchain helping you to achieve them. Ultimately, I don't really want anybody to care about blockchain as a thing. It is an inanimate object for the most part, or it is a construct. But what you should care about is what the change that trust, data platforms, autonomy, and tokens can create for the problems that we're facing today.
Wow. What can I say? What an answer. That's just, yeah, so on point. So on point. Thank you so much, Anthony. This has been an amazing call. Really appreciate your insights and, what you bring to blockchain and the understanding, I think is definitely going to help a lot of people just be like, whoa, okay, that's a different way of learning and understanding and seeing blockchain. So really insightful, well expressed, and a delightful interview. So thank you.
Thanks to you, Lavinia. Thank you for doing this. Thanks for supporting Women in Blockchain and the initiatives that you're looking to put out. Very happy to support that in any way that I can. And the industry, the sector, the community needs more female participation, needs more diversity. And if I can help in any way, please do reach out. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. Please do ask me the sorts of questions, Lavinia, that you're asking. And please do feel free to reach out. A lot of people starting out in a career or who are looking at a particular community don't feel they can ask questions, or they don't feel that they can reach out to people who've already been working in the space. That's not the case, right? Not everybody's going to reply to you in the next 10 minutes. Not everybody's going to get back to their DM straight away. But there are people like Lavinia and Ryan and myself out there who are looking to get more people interested and passionate about the scene. So please do feel empowered, feel able to reach out, and whatever we can do to help, we will.
Okay, couldn't say it better myself. Thank you very much. Until the next episode, guys. See you later.
Thank you for listening. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram to keep up with our updates. If you enjoyed this episode, then please rate, share, and leave a comment. Your support is appreciated. Until next time.